go over some of our notes in terms of the meeting process. This meeting is being conducted on the Zoom platform and in person at the California Natural Resources Agency in Sacramento. Only board members and staff are on the Zoom meeting. The public can view this meeting via live stream on the CWDB YouTube page and in person. A link to that page, meeting agenda, board packet information can be found on the CWDB webpage at cwdb.ca.gov under State Board Meetings and Archives. The recording of this meeting will stay on our YouTube page. Public comment is now open and will be accepted in email at boardpubliccomment@cwdb.ca.gov, or I can recognize you in my capacity. All emails will be read aloud during the public comments period noted on the agenda and will be included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. We allow for 3 minutes for each comment, so please be concise. Board members, please remain on mute, and then I'm happy to recognize you when you'd like to speak. Either you can type the question in the chat box or type speak, and I can recognize you that way, or use the raised hand feature. Just please note that anything typed in the Zoom chat box will be included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. So, Mr. Rainey, do you want to confirm quorum?
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
And do we need to do a public roll call? You can note it.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. So we'll start with our action item section for consideration of approving August 31st, 2022 meeting summary. You can find this information on page 4 of the agenda packet. Are there any comments or questions from executive committee members? Clemente, is there any public comment related to this topic?
No public comments at this time.
Okay, we can entertain a motion on the meeting summary.
Move approval.
Moved by Trevino, second by Nancy. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any abstentions or nays?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We'll now proceed to our updates and discussion. Our labor agency update. Is Abby Snay, are you available to address this now? Are you there? Somebody else? Let's just start with you. Yeah, we'll start with Tim and Curtis on their visit to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, real quick, and then I'll let Curtis chime in, and the executive committee doesn't have to listen because I said exactly the same thing before. We were invited to the California Workforce Development Board was invited to Washington, D.C. to attend the president's Infrastructure Talent Pipeline Challenge. It was the week before last on Wednesday, November 2nd. And just quickly, what really came up for us, and this is related to the Biden-Harris administration's push around infrastructure and the really historic levels of investment in infrastructure around the country. Huge investment in California. The event really highlighted, and so does all of the guidance coming out from the Biden-Harris administration, the role of organized labor, and particularly the building trades. So I walked into the White House, and what we saw were a bunch of the trades set up to do demonstrations on the work that they do. So we got to walk around the White House, went inside a room where about 200 people were seated and waited a little while for the president to come and heard his comments. And it was great to hear the enthusiasm that he has around this work, not just the infrastructure investments, but the opportunities to build things, but also get people access to really good quality jobs, union jobs for the most part. So we are doing a lot in California, as you well know, with high road construction careers and high road training partnerships. And the Newsom administration's push around apprenticeship, and particularly non-traditional apprenticeship. We're doing a lot in California in terms of setting up the infrastructure. No, don't mean to confuse the terms, to get people into those really great jobs as we build stuff in the state. So we're really excited. Another thing that really stood out for Curtis and me is our work precedes us. We haven't been to Washington, D.C. in a while, but I will say that Chairman Farouk has been there and put out the good work. But when we got there and we talked to folks at the AFL-CIO, the National Governors Association, we had meetings with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Labor, Department of Energy. We talked to a lot of folks while we were there. And they all know about high road construction repairs, and they all know about high road training partnerships. And they're looking to California as a model for the country in how to actualize the equity and job quality priorities of the Biden-Harris administration around these infrastructure investments. So it was really exciting. We got outreach from somebody named Jenny Weisberg, the Workers Family, the Family and Workers Fund. It's a funding collaborative. Thanks to Abby Snee for introducing us. And they worked with Curtis and me and the State Workforce Board to put together some materials to send to the White House. That got us the invitation. Those materials that describe the work we do were also in the materials that came out after the White House event. That was very good. We also took Sam Lewis from the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. We do a lot of work with them with HRCC in helping formerly incarcerated justice involved get access to great middle-class jobs in the trades. Sam went out there with us. We had a lot of conversation with the the North American Building Trades Unions. They work with us a bunch in California on the NC3 work. We were in contact with them. We made sure we met with them when we were in DC. We're continuing discussions. Want to thank Jeremy Smith for making sure we were connecting with NAB2 and always making sure we're talking to NAB2. There's a real tight collaboration of work with the state building trades, local building trades councils, NAB2, and CBOs around California on this HRCC work. Curtis, what did I leave out? Probably a bunch of stuff.
No, I think you covered it.
That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Rainey. Abby, are you available for your update, labor agency update?
Yes, I am. Is this a good time?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to give you this very brief update on the labor agency. I have a few things to talk about, starting with SURF. I'm hoping that most, if not all of you, are familiar and ideally involved with SURF planning in your local regions. SURF is the Community Economic Resilience Fund, funded at the level of $600 million in the 21-22 budget, the first phase of which is $5 million going to each of 13 regions in the state for planning grants, with the goal of developing an inclusive economic development plan that addresses equity and transition to a carbon neutral economy. 11 of those 13 planning grants have been awarded. Planning is starting, and the other 2 regions are pending. There are also listening sessions that the Office of Policy and Research, OPR, is setting up for the next phase of funding, which is early implementation for projects that are shovel-ready, shovel-worthy for early implementation funding. We have spoken before about the healthcare workforce initiative, $1.4 billion in the 22-23 budget. A few updates on that. You may have seen the funding guidelines that came out last week from the Employment Training Panel for healthcare worker advancement. Those should be ready for contract submission in January. What is new and innovative and different about those is that given that that's general fund dollars, employers who would otherwise not be eligible for traditional ETP funding because they support unemployment insurance in different ways will be eligible. So this includes some of the large nonprofit and public healthcare systems. And we're eager for them to apply. What is also different is that outcomes will be tied to career advancement as a very explicit goal. We have talked also about the EMS core component of this initiative, and I'll just remind you that there are 12 different program elements in the initiative, and some of the work that we're doing on a parallel track to shaping the actual funding, getting it out to the community, is shaping an overall initiative that is greater than the sum of its parts. And so the EMS core aims to replicate the very successful training program that Alameda County runs for at-risk youth, to get them trained and into EMT jobs as an entry point into the healthcare system. The goal, there will be a solicitation released in the next few weeks for an intermediary to do planning with the goal of identifying 10 counties around the state for replication. Tim's team has been hard at work on shaping funding guidelines and solicitation plans for the $135 million for healthcare HRTP, with some early grants pending. And those will focus on allied health occupations. Again, as part of an overall initiative, our partners at CHHS have funding, at approximately $300 million for nursing, for community health worker, for social workers as part of the initiative. And so the HRTP will really target allied health roles and to address regional labor market demand in those fields. On the CHHS side, HCI has released a request for information for training certified nurses assistant. That was from the prior year funding, but we've been making connections so that some of the organizations that have traditionally been funded through CWDB can expand their basis of funding. There is also $130 million targeted for English language learners to prepare them for high quality jobs in healthcare. Through the generosity of the Haas Junior Foundation, we've been able to put together a working group facilitated by Amanda Berkson-Shilcock of the National Skills Coalition to work with partners at the Chancellor's Office, at the Adult Ed in the Department of Education, to really shape this in a way that encourages innovation. I mean, we're hoping for more integrated education and training models, and hoping that release should be ready Q1, probably later Q1 in 2023. And I'm really thrilled to share with you that we will have an assistant deputy secretary for healthcare workforce starting on December 5th. She'll be sworn in that day. Some of you may have worked with her, Jessica Pitt, who currently runs a very innovative workforce program for Alameda Health Systems, and previously was the coordinator of the Bay Area Workforce Funding Collaborative. Other brief funding release news: Workforce Services branch of EDD has been working on solicitations for the WIOA 15% dollars. These will have more of a population focus rather than an explicit sector focus, although applicants are certainly asked to identify their sector and make the case for why the sector, based on demand, based on good quality jobs in that sector. The Equity Target Population Fund solicitation is out now. This is based on a theory of change that for people who have barriers to employment, challenges to employment, that's disability, youth, that cohort-based training with very robust supports, with close and selective employer partnerships, can really move people into good jobs. And over the next few weeks, there will be another solicitation released that targets people experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, with a focus on employment social enterprise programs to support the support services and transition support that can really make the difference for people without much work experience or without recent work experience to be successful in transitional employment and then move on to competitive jobs or other training or apprenticeship. We are also working with labor partners, with partners in Climate Justice Coalition, other coalitions, on the 40 million that was awarded for oil and gas worker displacement. We have a team of researchers at the Harvard Kennedy School who are building on the research that has already been done. And Carol Zabin, I'll call you out and thank you for just your incredible insight and resources and support for these researchers so that their work can build on the work that's been done, with a goal of having a plan in place and a solicitation out in the spring. And then briefly, happy National Apprenticeship Week to everyone. There have been a whole series of activities and events this week. One today on apprenticeship in healthcare, which has actually been the theme all week. And you may also know that the proposed framework for the Apprenticeship Innovation Fund is out for public comment. So if you haven't looked at that, please look and comment. And we're just initiating some work that I think could be a game changer in California of working with a team of researchers as well as partners at the State Board of Education, the Department of Education, the Teacher Credentialing Commission to both pilot and test a few specific programs in teacher apprenticeship and to develop a system for teacher apprenticeship with an eye towards recruitment from communities of color, particularly males, and to create a pipeline into teacher credentialing and employment that does not make people take time off from their jobs to get their BA degrees or their apprenticeships. And I guess the last thing I want to talk about, maybe can turn to you, Tim, because you've been really close on this, on some of the very promising planning around the infrastructure dollars that are coming into the state. Do you want to pick that one up, Tim?
Yeah,
I'm always happy to answer questions. Right?
Yeah, thanks, Abby. That's a great report. Really appreciate that. Tied to the trip to Washington, D.C. is a conversation we're having in Sacramento with our partners at Caltrans, at our resources agency, and other partners at the state level about not only how we invest those infrastructure dollars, but how we create opportunities for people to get into the jobs that are created. So it is a combination of building a strong field component of good programs on the ground that allow access to these jobs as they're built, but also doing the work in Sacramento to put into procurement and contracting to the extent we can to kind of set up the conditions for putting people into those good jobs. So it's a very robust conversation that's being led by Secretary Fuji, Labor Secretary, and in conversations with her colleagues at the other agencies on how we'll do this. We're also having this discussion with the governor's office. So we're excited about the potential. We think that we're going to have to dig in with our partners and provide some advice and guidance on exactly how to build these things into the contracting and procurement around workforce standards. So we're hoping to start that work. I should say that this is not brand new for us. We've been doing this for some time, and I've reported out on that in the past, particularly around climate and climate agencies. Ensuring that those investments are creating the kind of quality jobs and equity we want to see around the state. We've done work with Department of General Services, for example, not related to climate, but the building of all the state buildings downtown. We have a community workforce agreement on that was negotiated with the state building trades. That's actually pulling new apprentices from our high road construction careers program in Sacramento. There's similar examples around the state that I can talk about if you wish. But that is the kind of broad strategy. Let's build stuff, but let's build stuff in a way that we did it a long time ago, not a new concept, where we're impacting employment and creating equity and access to good quality jobs. Combine those things and not just build things, but build things and impact employment. Is that?
Tim, can I make a suggestion? This is Leanne. As we look at ensuring that the partners are at the table, the California Transportation Commission obviously is looking at the infrastructure and IIJA and all of the new money coming to the state of California, and how do we ensure that we have the infrastructure across the state equitably and all of those kinds of things. So as we're meeting with partners, I did notice we had a big partner meeting last month, the CTC and a lot of our partners, and the State Workforce Board was not there. And so I did say, hey, we're missing a piece here. So I would suggest, and you have an in with the chair, by the way, I would suggest that we look at having some joint meetings together to look at, especially with SB1 coming back around, what will that look like, so that we can ensure that no matter what money comes into the state of California, that we have the people to be able to do those jobs. The last thing we want is for us to get the $40 billion that we're going to be getting here in the next couple of years, and somebody bringing people from Chicago to do the work for us.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. Yeah, I want to talk to you more about that. It's a great suggestion, and just to build on that, because Leanne, you and Chuck are on, and you represent the great work being done in Fresno and around the Central Valley around access to jobs and construction. The work that you do is a model for the state, and it's a model that we take back to Washington, D.C. One of the things that we're looking at that I want to mention that Abby kind of threw to me, and I forgot to mention this, is that our current hydro construction peers work doesn't have that kind of sustained funding that we need to really support what you and Chuck are doing, and also these partnerships in every corner of California, because it's not constant funding, it's intermittent, and there are always gaps. So a lot of the conversation we're having really with our partners at the state level is how can we sustain this investment in ways that really build the capacity of these partnerships on the ground, so they outlive even this money and my existence here, which I don't want to get into because that seems.
And adding to that, Chuck and I'm sure everybody knows that the EDC, and Chuck is part of the team, we got awarded the Good Jobs Challenge, $23 million, only 2 in the state of California. But in that Good Jobs Challenge for these next 4 years, at least we have money that we're looking at the apprenticeship programs. We're focusing on construction, manufacturing, and transportation. And in that, obviously, the trades are, and the apprenticeship programs are a part of each one of those things. And how do we move forward? And that's a great jumping off place too, right? Is that, now with this $23 million, we can actually apply for more things that are going to be able to add to this. So we need to be looking all the time of, thank you so much to the federal government. But now we need to make sure that's for the next 20 years, not just for the next 4.
Thank you, Leanne. Before we get to John, Floyd is asking what's being done to address the latest tech layoffs. Abby, is that a question you can say at the state level, or is that being done at the regional level?
That is, well, I think at both levels, but the real work is being done at the local and regional level. I know, I've been in contact with Josh Arce at CWDB that is doing some really good work for the all the Twitter layoffs, the Meta layoffs, some of the Amazon. So, that is something that we are watching and tracking, right? And I just know that in San Francisco, the city and county government is so desperate for tech workers, they have set up a hotline so that those workers laid off from the private companies could just, not that hiring is ever easy in the city and county, but could be considered for those desperately needed roles.
Thank you, Abby. John Brower.
Thanks, Angelo. Tim, asking maybe if there's not an answer now, but is there, for that working group of agencies, is there also a discussion around the fact, given their federal dollars, that there's an opportunity around moving things like Executive Order 11246 forward as opposed to some of the limitations that we have in the states, say with Prop 209 and some things. And I'm wondering whether those kinds of conversations have had or could be had with both DOL or amongst yourselves anyway, given that they're federal dollars, there's actually more opportunity to really move some pieces around equity and inclusion, even beyond what the state's done.
Yeah, that's a great question, John. And a lot of the reason we went to Washington, D.C., Curtis and I, in the meetings we set up, and by the way, thanks, John, for opening the door for us to go to the NFL. That was really terrific. Had a great discussion there. Was to get guidance from our partners at the state level. That's why we met with the transportation folks and the labor folks and others, the Department of Labor folks, because they're pushing out guidance on this all the time. And a lot of really great guidance is coming out from the White House. And the intentionality is really clear. That it's good quality jobs, it's largely union jobs, and also that these are flexible dollars. At least some of the funding streams are relatively flexible dollars. So we're kind of pulling that apart also because we want to be sure that we maximize the flexibility of those funds coming in so we can do the kind of work that we want to do. But John, looking at all the guidance coming from the different places, and I think you know well the Deputy Secretary at the U.S. Department of Labor is behind a lot of the signaling on this. We're really excited about that the Biden-Harris administration's push on this matches really nicely with our vision, our strategy on building infrastructure and creating good jobs. So it's all there. I think it's a matter of being sure that we're maximizing that flexibility.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, John. Okay, we'll move on to the next portion of the updates and discussion, which is regarding modification of our bylaws. So the U.S. Department of Labor recently conducted a review of our state board as well as EDB, and the DOL found that for compliance with federal law, the board's bylaws must be modified. There's 3 things specifically regarding our board composition as well as our meetings. One is to address term limits and how the term appointments are going to be staggered. The second is the process to notify the governor of a member vacancy to ensure that there's a prompt nominee. And then the third is the use of technology, web-based meetings format similar to what we're using Zoom to promote greater meeting participation. So to resolve these items, we will update our bylaws and submit them to Department of Labor. We have clarified with the agency that while Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act (WIOA) requires that state board bylaws address term limits, then it's up to the governor to determine what those term limits are. And so the steps for modifying the bylaws are the following: consult with Secretary Pugliai in our office as well as the governor's office. Then draft amendments to the bylaws to address this outstanding missing criteria. Present those amended bylaws first to our executive committee for review and approval, and then lastly take it to all of you, everyone on the board, at our next meeting for formal adoption. Are there any comments or questions from our board regarding this update?
Did you want Curtis to go back to the?
Oh, yeah. Curtis, do you wanted to give an update actually?
Yeah. Sorry, so let's go ahead.
Yeah, please.
One more update for the full board is that we applied for this. Well, let me take a step back. In 2018, the state budget included trailer bill language that required CDCR, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, to use the MC3 curriculum in all programs operated by CDCR. California Prison Industry Authority had been using MC3 programs, but they weren't being used on the CDCR CTE side of our prison education system. So there was a work group that was formed by CDCR that included us here at the CWDB, Tim, Dan Rounds, and I sat on that working group, along with the state building trades, some of the local building trades councils, and CBOs and other folks. We worked together with CDCR to develop an implementation plan We worked with NAB2, North American Building Trades Unions, who have jurisdiction over the MC curriculum, and we developed an implementation plan. And long story short, right now that is implemented in all 35 state prisons or institutions across the state. So it was a pretty successful program. I guess building off of that and looking at that, the Biden-Harris administration, United States Bureau of Prisons, United States Department of Labor put out a grant this past summer that is seeking to do some pilots in federal prisons across the country. Several states applied, including us in California. And we were, California was awarded one of those federal grants. I think there are 6 other states who are awarded to do some pilot work. So we, the CWDB will be advising the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Bureau of Prisons to put together a national plan for implementation of MC3 in federal prisons across the country. So we're just starting our work with DOL, U.S. DOL, and U.S. Bureau of Prisons. We reached out to CDCR. Our partners over at CDCR who worked with on this, they're on board. They're excited to get going. We've also been in discussions with NAB2, because obviously having a national partner in this is going to be important, and NAB2 is willing to work on it with us also. So I think we're taking all the right steps to make this happen. Looking forward to using it. And I think it's another testament to California. When we're talking about Ohio Run as a national model, I think this is another one that'll hopefully emerge as a national model. We'll get some good stuff. There's some issues that we're still working on with NAB2 and the state building trades here on some placement issues that I think we'll want to pilot and figure out. That's going to be on a much larger scale at the federal level, where people are serving time in federal prisons and where they're released. Could be in other states. So there's a lot of issues I think we're going to have to work through on this one, but I think we're up for the challenge, and it's gonna be an exciting grant to work.
Thank you for that update, Curtis. Leonard Gonzalez, Leonard has a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just regarding that particular piece, did I hear you correctly when you said that you're meeting with CDCR, State Building Trades, with regards to MC3 curriculum within the federal prisons here in California, and that at this time there's, with regards to MC3, there's no programs that are delivering MC3 within the federal prisons, including under CalPIA?
In our state prison system, they are using MC3, both with CalPIA and CDCR, and in the CDCR CTE program. So in the state prisons, it's being used. It may be being used in some of the federal prisons. We're just getting started. We're not familiar with the U.S. Bureau of Prisons quite yet. We have a lot of discovery, I think, to do there to figure out if there may be some programs if they are using it. But that's certainly on our agenda to sit down with the U.S. Bureau of Prisons soon and figure out how we can do that.
In those conversations, because there are CTE programs that are being delivered within the state and federal prisons, Folsom, for example, and also there's a couple others. But you know, have you guys engaged any of the organizations, crafts that are actually delivering the curriculum within inside the prisons to include in this discussion?
Yeah, not yet, Leonard. We've just started. I mean, this is really just coming up. It's kind of been an interesting opportunity for us that U.S. Department of Labor and the Federal Bureau of Prisons want to come to us to provide this kind of technical assistance. So we're really just starting the conversations. But you're right. We want to work with the laborers who've done such great work with PIA and delivering pre-release training and then connecting people to jobs once they're released. Is really beautiful. It's a model for what we want to do. Our workers are in there also. I think the partners are in. Partners are in there.
And just for clarification, Tim, because you knew where I was going with this, we're MC3 certified.
Yep.
So I think that's the thing is, I mean, that's great. You have the state building trades included, but I think if you turn to some of these local, regional, or in our case, we cover the 46 Northern California counties under the laborers. We're in 6 prisons throughout Northern California, including Chowchilla Women Facility delivered MC3. So we're happy to sit down and share any information that you all need with what we're doing, and even invite you to tour the facility with us if you'd like.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, thank you, Leonard.
Yeah, and that's going to be critical, right? I think what we want to do is lift up that model that's been built here in California with PIA and with CDCR CTE programs, and figure out how we can use that inside of our federal prisons across the country. So looking forward to that conversation.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Leonard. Any other comments or questions regarding these updates on the board? Okay.
Can I just make one more point? Because the camera can't see the whole room. The amazing director, Nancy Farias, is actually here in person, which is amazing. So if you can scan the camera over to show where Nancy is. Oh wait, the camera, there it goes. All right. There she is. Wait. There she is.
So we will, Clemente, are there any public comments related to these updates?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. Thank
No
you.
public comments on YouTube either.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. We'll now shift to our initiative updates, and to brief you on the board's work, we'll do a quick round. We're requesting that everybody please be brief, 3 to 5 minutes each, please. And we'll begin with our policy legislation research team led by Pradeep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll talk about the 4 strands that we work under in the policy research and legislation branch. I'll start with the partnership team and the statewide partnership team. They work in 2 levels. One is working with WIO partners and working with them on the implementation of the law. And then we work with our state partner agencies to collaborate on different aspects, in both funding in terms and on procurement standards, and also in scoring of grants. Curtis already talked about the prison or reentry population and working at the federal and state level. The 2 other areas in which the state partnership team is working on, and Abby touched upon this, is working with the Health and Human Services Agency, and they were also working with the Interagency Council for Homelessness Action Plan. And throughout, the common theme throughout all this work is essentially looking at job quality standards to be included within the work of those agencies. We're also finalizing the WIO annual report for the program year 2021, and that is now being remediated by our communications team. And that is due at the U.S. Department of Labor by December 1st. Moving on to the data management and administration team. They're, as I've mentioned this before, they're close to completion of moving CalSkills from the 20th century to the 21st century and moving it to the cloud infrastructure. They're also working on creating new agreements with the data partners as we move from CalSkills 1.0 to CalSkills 2.0. And the CalSkills team is working with the California Policy Lab to move to the next phase of the evaluation for CalSkills 2.0, and we're having conversation with the California Policy Lab in terms of focusing on different work streams. Now that we've learned quite a bit from CalSkills 1, we're trying to sort of enhance and expand the evaluation work under CalSkills 2.0. Moving to the research work that we do in our branch, we've just completed 4 third-party evaluations, the CalSkills Impact Report, the AJCC Evaluation Report, the AB 1111 Report, and the RPI 3.0 report. The CalSkills CPL Impact Study, as well as the AJCC evaluation report, is on our website, and the other 2 will be there shortly. We are now moving to the next phase of third-party evaluations, 2 of which are the RERP, the Regional Equity and Recovery Partnership, and we're moving to and we are also working on the reentry population, working on with the UC Riverside on that, and one additional grant that we're working is on the breaking barriers, and all those will be coming online next year. In addition to the third-party evaluation work, we are actually staff is working on concept papers on job quality, equity, and we're also looking back on the accelerated grants and trying to because we are now actually in version 11 of that, and so we have a history of information that we can call to get some nuggets of information about innovation and innovative practices in workforce development. Finally, as you know, the legislature is on a hiatus right now, and from the past session, we have 8 bills that 4 in the Assembly and 4 in the Senate that are chaptered bills, so which CWDB is working on. They're sort of in three different areas. One area is in data improvement and trying to sort of enhance the data gathering, particularly on the wage and employment side. The other one is related to inclusion of job procurement standards, and the third relate to climate. Tim, with that, if there are any questions, I tried to be as brief as I could.
Thank you, Pradeep. Does anybody have any questions regarding his report?
And I just, if I could, I just want to mention, Pradeep and I are also thinking about and working on a strategy for youth, something that Member Williams brought up some time ago, and we've had some discussions, and a lot has happened since then in terms of funding and program for youth, and want to pull that conversation back together with you, Joseph, and with Abby and Pradeep, and kind of think about moving forward, given what's happened in the last budget, which is very substantial.
Thank you for your efforts there, Joseph. And if you haven't switched already, we'll make sure someone is ready. So we'll move on to our next update, which is program implementation, led by Joelle.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My brief report today includes the Workforce Accelerator Fund 11. Those applications are currently in review. Both the Breaking Barriers and the Prison to Employment projects that were recommended for award are in that approval process with the labor agency. And then for the High Road Training Partnership Resilient Workforce Fund, we should have the first awards as early as next week, followed closely by another set of awards that are approved. And then that High Road Training Partnership Resilient Workforce Fund is currently closed. The announcement's on our website. It's under some enhancements, and we're planning to reopen it again mid-January. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Joelle. Okay, no questions, then we'll move to our last initiative update, which is High Road Field Team, led by.
I'll do it first, Sandy.
Okay, Sandra, starting with Tim.
Yeah, and I'll be brief also on behalf of the field team. The field team, as you know, which is the our kind of interventionist crew, the State Workforce Board, working out around California, both helping to develop new projects that could apply for high-road training partnerships or high-road construction careers, but also supporting existing grantees and doing all that it takes to make sure that our grantees and the grant are successful. There's a lot of technical assistance and care and feeding that goes into that work. It's not a big team, but it is a big state, and we have a lot of projects, so it keeps everybody very busy. We're still trying to expand capacity there in terms of hiring new staff. There are funds available. We now, thanks to the great work of the program team and Joelle, we put the high-road training partnership dollars in a kind of revolving fund so that we can accept applications ongoing, and then we kind of roll up those applications quarterly. And that way we can move money out more efficiently, effectively, and also as new funding comes in, we can sort of pardon the term, but drop it into that fund and just keep things moving. We're doing a lot of work now of kind of pulling that apart with the labor agency and Secretary Pelugii to make it even stronger and better. And that's delayed things slightly, but we're going to have a better product coming out of this process. We're excited about that. We have low carbon economy workforce money available to apply for. We have oil and gas well capping pilot funding that came in the most recent budget out for applications. We also have high-road training partnership money that Abby mentioned for healthcare partnerships. And Tanya and our team is working really closely with Abby to help kind of move that really exciting part of the high-road training partnership initiative, building more project and programs in the healthcare industry. Lots of opportunity for good quality jobs there. Really quickly, we have something that I've mentioned before called the High-Road Training Fund, and it's a collaboration with foundations in California, Irvine in particular. They came to us, wanted to co-invest in high-road training partnerships. We said, heck yeah. We brought Jobs for the Future in as an intermediary, and what they're doing is looking at the high-road training partnerships around the state and looking for gaps that foundation money can help to plug. That money moves a lot faster than ours does. It can be very targeted. So we spent a lot of time working with Jobs for the Future. Abby's really involved in that, and Secretary Pelugii and our team in kind of moving that forward. It's a really great opportunity because we haven't had that kind of collaboration with foundations at the state level. This is really unique, and we hope that it continues to grow. Funding just went out recently. I think it's September, is that right, Abby? For a few of our higher training partnerships, and y'all know who you are. We'll see more of that going on. On a parallel track with higher construction careers, we work with the state building trades very closely on this, and the Foundation for Community Colleges. Lumina Foundation is doing the same, co-investing with us in higher construction careers, targeting the kind of roadblocks or barriers for people getting in and succeeding as apprentices. This is a real focus on community colleges and using them as some of our trainings around math remediation, especially, but also with the intention of getting college credit for pre-apprentices in our MC3 program. So it's very exciting. It's targeted now, it's fairly small, but we hope and intend to grow it. We're talking to Lumina right now. So lots of exciting stuff going on with the field team.
Thank you, Tim, for providing that update on the higher field team. Are there any comments or questions for Tim? Okay, and for our online, are there any public comments whether on the YouTube or on the? Are there any public comments submitted electronically via email?
Can I add one thing? I'm sorry.
Sure, one more.
I just want to quickly thank John Brower and the WEG program at the California Labor Federation, because they've done really terrific work with our field team in both creating new opportunities for applicants for higher training partnerships, but also that support of existing partnerships. So I wanted to be sure to say that before we move on. There he is. He's showing his face. Thumbs up. All right.
Bob, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking about this. At the last meeting, we talked about a common form that we were going to try to develop across all the different funds in reporting to show results more common, because as we talked about last meeting, ETP and HRTP and other ones have different reporting. So it's really hard to get a consistent look at results. And I think the Labor Department was talking about having one form across 3 or 4 different programs so that the reporting would be more consistent. Do you know if we've made any progress on that?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I don't know if Joelle wants to jump in. We are working on that. It's painstaking work, and we love it. You've been pushing it because it really kind of moved us in this direction of not only having available in one place what all the opportunities are for funding, but actually using technology so that we can align better our funding, our grant making with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards with ETP, us, and the Employment Development Department. So we are now using the same system, Salesforce, and you can imagine that building all this in technology, always has its ups and downs. But we're really closely aligned with the Employment Training Panel and Division of Apprenticeship Standards right now, and we're kind of moving this together. So our plan and our aspiration is to do exactly what you described, Bob, that it's kind of almost like one process. It's simplified for the end user. It's really easy to apply for fund. The outcomes are pretty similar across programs, and what the grantees report to us is much easier across all those programs. But Abby may want to chime in. We're not quite there yet, but we're working at it.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick too that, like Tim said, it is painstaking work. It is something that we are building on the Salesforce platform. It's something that we're looking at in the context of our work with community colleges also. And so there's a lot of data dictionary work that needs to be done. I think I'd add just Bob in general, kind of like what we're doing with our grant applications right now is looking at what those common variables are across all programs, figuring out what those are, and being able to kind of have in Salesforce, like identifying those variables and having them available, but then also looking at what's different, because how ETP does their contracts and how we do our grants is a little bit different. And so the outcomes are going to be a little bit different. It's identifying what those differences are, trying to, be as close as possible, but also, needing to address the individual needs of the different programs. So of the funding sources, the statutory requirements or the federal requirements that are attached to it. So we hear you. We are definitely moving in that direction.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Bob. Any other comments or questions regarding these updates? Clemente or anyone else, can you guys please confirm if there's any public comments on YouTube or email?
No public comments at this time.
None on YouTube as well.
Perfect, thank you. So we will now proceed to what normally would be our local workforce board update, but we won't have one for this meeting. And I just want to note though that this is a standing item on our agenda and a way for us to be on the pulse of the critical work that's happening throughout the state. And so we will have apparently at least 2 reports at our next meeting.
Yeah, and we welcome, a lot of you sit on local workforce boards by design. So we welcome you to reach out to your board directors and staff and encourage them to come and report to us. I usually do that outreach and couldn't line one up for this meeting, but could really use your help. You're great liaisons out there with the workforce system. Some of you were also, really involved in higher training partnerships and higher construction careers. So we want to maximize our use of you in doing that liaison work.
And regarding other business, we don't have our 2023 calendar of meetings set yet, but as soon as we do, all of you will be notified. We'll now proceed to general public comments. Clemente, do we have any general public comments?
No general public comments at this time.
No
Okay,
YouTube comments at this time.
perfect. We can now entertain a motion to adjourn. Nancy, motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? Okay, happy holidays to everyone. Best wishes from all of us here at the California Workforce Development Board. Take care.
Take care,
Thank
bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you. Thank you.
Tim, let's be in touch about maybe the next CTC meeting after December.
Yeah,
Maybe that'd
absolutely.
be great.
Yeah, thank you,
Come
Dan.
into
Thanks
your
for,
presentation.
well, Curtis, I'll reach out to you straight away. So we can
Okay.
make, yeah, thank you.
Perfect.